A lot of things are changing, and to set tone for this video, I'm going to open with a promise that has been made to all of us by the new boss of Xbox. She stated, as monetization and AI evolve and influence this future, we will not chase short-term efficiency or flood ecosystem with soulless AI slop. Now those are the words of Xbox's new boss, Asha Chararma. On their own, they are actually good words. Words that I think we all can get behind that would maybe give some hope that the new Xbox would avoid the worst tendencies of Microsoft. But the thing is, up until this week, Asha Chararma was president of Microsoft Core AI. While competitors seem to be succeeding with consumer and business AI, Microsoft is specifically known for being sloppy and honestly quite bad at it. So as much as she's opened her tenure with a statement designed to meet our current wishes, I'm not necessarily sure how much I'm willing to trust it. This story isn't just about Asha, of course. Phil Spencer is gone and Sarah Bond is gone, rather dramatically. When everyone was writing their farewell or hello memos, only Phil Spencer actually mentioned Sarah Bond, the rest didn't. We'll get to what people are leaking about that later, but first we need to talk about how this story broke. It all went down last thing on a Friday afternoon. That's when Microsoft and Xbox decided to announce their biggest shakeup in over 2 decades. Xbox CEO Phil Spencer is retiring after spending 38 years at Microsoft. In theory, it's the perfect year to retire. It's the 25th anniversary of the launch of the first Xbox, which feels like a natural moment to pass on the torch. But if that was the real reason for all this change, then why is this happening before the celebrations have even begun? To understand the reason for this change, we have to look at the new boss. Asha Chararma is the new CEO, and her career history is incredibly telling. She spent 2 years in marketing at Microsoft, then helped found an online home contractor service called Porsche as its COO. After that, she spent 4 years at Meta as VP of Product Engineering for Messenger and Instagram. She climbed the ladder again to become COO at Instacart, where she had the massive responsibility of preparing the company for its stock market listing, holding direct responsibility for profit and loss. She's also on the board of companies like Home Depot and a South Korean e-commerce company. In 2024, she went back to Microsoft as the head of product for their AI platforms and eventually became the president of Core AI product. To many, this is the most worrying part, especially considering the current state of franchises like Call of Duty. Chararma promises no AI slop. I do wonder if she had to ask Satya Nadella for permission to use that phrase, because he is on record as hating the word slop. Phil Spencer had previously been on record stating that developers had free reign within the tech and that it was mostly used for operational things like moderation, a claim that would be easier to disapprove if untrue. Instead, our real focus should be on Chararma's role as product executive. She's someone who builds products, knows the market fit, and builds audiences. That's not a bad fit for Xbox, considering the group's problems for the last decade is what Xbox means, and it keeps on changing. Believe me, there is drama in that, and we'll get to it shortly. But this appointment reflects a moment for change, because unlike Phil Spencer, Chararma is not stepping up to this role from within Xbox. She's coming over from Microsoft's most profitable venture in decades. Her lack of industry-specific experience may obviously be a problem. Posting things on Twitter like liking Halo, Valheim, and GoldenEye is fine, but it's not the same as having real experience in the games industry. But let's be technically honest, you don't need to be Phil Spencer wearing a graphic tee to run a games company, and as long as you are willing to learn and make good products, outside experience isn't automatically a bad thing. But the way this leadership came about is hard to not read as Microsoft bringing someone in to run Xbox strictly in line with their own wishes. So what happened to the old boss? A year ago, rumors started that Phil Spencer wanted to retire, but he directly denied it on January. In July, rumors spread that he would step down after the next console launch and Sarah Bond would take over. That was also debunked by Microsoft's chief communication officer. However, according to last week's memos, Phil Spencer changed his mind. He started talking to Satya Nadella in late autumn of 2025, and they made a decision. He'll hang around to advise Chararma until the summer, and then he is out. If we are approaching this skeptically, that timeline clearly aligns with Xbox suffering a massive drop in Call of Duty sales last year. I don't think it's fair to blame Phil for entirety of it. The development problems stem from legacy Activision decisions as well, but dropping from the 1st to 5th best-selling game of the year does massive damage to quarterly revenue. We're talking about a brutal 9% year-on-year drop, which is much worse than something like The Outer Worlds 2 underperforming. Maybe that got the wheel spinning at Microsoft. After all, Xbox spent several years just keeping its head above water, dealing with layoffs and canceled games, driven by a need to show more profit. Multiple reports even stated that last year layoffs were specifically to free up future funding for AI. Maybe Spencer made this choice to step down on his own, seeing the way the wind was blowing. But insiders say that this was not planned, and we know that because of who is left. Matt Booty was promoted to EVP and Chief Content Officer, but he's not the president of Xbox. There is a glaring omission from Nadella's, Chararma's, and even Booty's statements: Sarah Bond. This woman, who had been the president of Xbox since 2023, simply resigned. She was framed in every way as Phil Spencer's successor, but according to The Verge, she was allegedly leading a disastrous marketing campaign designed to expand the audience for their games. This allegedly put her at odds with the internal skeptics who were offended at the lack of focus on consoles. Of course, console sales have only gotten worse over time. So instead of handing the torch to Bond, the new CEO is a product-focused executive from Microsoft's fastest-growing division, moved over to oversee their most turbulent division. Honestly, I really can't sum up the state of Xbox better than Phil Spencer himself back in 2023. We lost to the worst generation to lose. He had been brought in just after the disastrous TV-focused launch of Xbox One. Throughout his tenure, Xbox essentially could not convince people to leave their PlayStations once they were entrenched in Sony's ecosystem. So every change afterward was about finding new ways to run the business. They acquired Minecraft from the bottom line, they acquired Activision Blizzard for more games, though the regulatory fights did cost a lot of money. They pushed Game Pass, which was arguably the best deal in gaming until right now when they had to substantially hike the prices to make it more profitable. They expanded to PC gamers and now they're selling Xbox games to PlayStation players, meaning there is actually no reason to buy an Xbox anymore. All of this turbulence appears to have put them directly at odds with Microsoft. Microsoft wanted consistent managed growth so that Xbox could pay on its own, allowing the larger corporate to entirely focus all of its energy and money into AI. When layoffs hit in summer of 2025, Spencer's memo framed the decision as a requirement to follow Microsoft's lead. At Summer's Games Fest, the language shifted to Xbox having to be accountable to Microsoft. Microsoft CFO Amy Hood supposedly pushed a target of 30% profit margin for Xbox. There has always been an undertone that Xbox's worst choices, the layoffs, the cancellations, their desperate push to push Game Pass on smart TVs and fridges, were downstream of pressure from Microsoft, and that Spencer and Bond mitigated the worst of the damage as best as they could. That doesn't relieve them of responsibility, of course. A lot of the damage was poorly mitigated. Redfall was famously a flop because Xbox allegedly gave Arkane Austin free rein, and their approach led to ballooning development timelines, crunch, and harassment under their watch. But at their core, Spencer and Bond seem to care about making Xbox work as a gaming division, perhaps even in spite of Microsoft. Now, we have a new leadership that's handpicked by Microsoft, and they aren't guaranteed to share those same principles. What does that mean for the future? Matt Booty has promised that no layoffs in the wake of these changes, and we are still expecting big franchises like Forza, Fable, Halo, and Gears of War to deliver this year for the 25th anniversary. Sharma inherits decisions already in motion, so there will be a lag time before we see what changes she actually brings to the table. But Sharma was not given this role as a continuity candidate. The real clue is in the final lines of her memo to the staff. She wrote, "I want to return to the renegade spirit that built Xbox," adding to, "It will require us to relentlessly question everything, revisit processes, protect what works, and be brave enough to change what does not." That sounds good in theory, but that's a story from Spencer's time that we really need to focus on here. In 2014, Satya Nadella was considering closing Xbox, just stopping it completely. Spencer convinced him otherwise based on his belief in the business and his teams. Then, despite Microsoft denying the reports, rumors surfaced that Nadella considered closing Xbox down again in 2021. They obviously didn't and instead committed to a massive Activision Blizzard expansion. But if that conversation happens for a third time under Asha Sharma, will Satya Nadella say the same thing? Going into the next generation of consoles, do you honestly believe Microsoft will have any better footing? And in case like that, will Satya really want to bother? Honestly, I don't expect that he will. But over the few years, I'm fairly sure that we are going to find out anyways. Thanks for watching the video, guys, and if you like coverages on gaming like this, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Leaving a like on the video will be very appreciated, and I'll see you guys in the next video.